Blog Talk Radio.
Hello. Welcome to blogtalkradio.com. You are now online with Andrea.
Tonight we are featuring a very, very special topic, one that is close to my heart. My guest tonight has an incredible, incredible story to share. He has had not one, but 3 near-death experiences. Welcome, Dave Bennett, to Online with Andrea. How are you today?
Very good, Andrea. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to your show.
Very fast. And were you very religious, or?
Well, again, I was thrown from one family to another. So one family was Seventh-day Adventist. My mother was an atheist, and then Christian family. So I was receiving a lot of mixed signals in my youth.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, as a child, did you ever wonder what happens when the body physically dies? Did that ever cross your mind at all?
I can't say that it did, but I did have some out-of-body type of experiences as a young child. Because I was always the new kid in a new school system, of course, the bullies were the first people that you run into when you're the new kid all the time.
Right.
And I got very good at being able to kind of fly ahead on my walks to school to see where the bullies were. And I thought everyone could do this. I just thought nobody was sharing that with me because I didn't belong in any one family.
Right.
So
That's interesting. So even as a child, you were having some very special experiences.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I look back on it now, and then when you grow older, I put a lot of that aside. I also spent some time in Arizona when I did come back with my mom when I was 14, and there, my family they liked to argue, and they liked to bicker, and they loved each other, but that was how they expressed their love. And so I would spend most of my time escaping from them. And what I found was that my friends who were Native American, Hopi and Navajo, their grandmothers kind of adopted me because they saw the dysfunction in my family. And so they taught me how to find my sacred place when I was 14. So I learned how to meditate at an early age. But but then once you have to live in the real world, I put those things aside because, I needed to survive, basically. And so I like to say that, I developed that addiction to adrenaline, but also I learned how to cut my swath through life. That was my philosophy in life, is that's how you live. You cut your swath through life.
Now, as a child or as a teenager, did you ever have, that you can recall, any exposure to anyone who had a near-death experience, whether it was someone personally or something that you heard about or even watching it on television?
No, I can't say that I had any knowledge about near-death experiences until I had mine. And I felt with my experience that I was the only person in the world that ever had anything like that. So I felt quite isolated at first.
Right. Now, so tell us about the events leading up to that. Now, you were, as you had mentioned earlier, an engineer and then a diver. So if you could tell us a little bit about what you were doing and your first experience. And then I also wonder, since you were always so daring as a child, did you ever have any fears of death at all?
Let me answer the last question first. Fears of death as a child. I had a premonition that I was going to die in my 20s. And in fact, I didn't expect to live beyond my 20s. That was a very distinct feeling that I had. So I think that's part of the reason why I was such an adrenaline junkie, was because I thought I was going to die young anyway, so I might as well live life to the fullest. So So I was the chief engineer of a research vessel. We did underwater exploration, and we were coming back from a trip where we had just evaluated a new remote-operated submarine. And the sea state, there was an offshore storm that was blowing in toward the west coast, and this is off the coast of California. And we were just outside Ventura Harbor. We were about 5 miles out from Ventura Harbor. And the harbor master wouldn't let our ship in because Ventura Harbor is a very small harbor, very, very small.
Right.
And this is a 143-foot research vessel with, you know, submarines on the back and stuff like that. So it was a big vessel. On board was the engineer for this new submarine, and he needed to get to LAX that evening to make a flight. And so, assessing everything, the captain and he decided that maybe we could launch we had a rubber Zodiac boat. We had a normal small boat that we normally did Liberty type of launches with, but it was so rough that we thought, you know, that boat would get swamped in these swells, and so we felt that it was much too small to handle that water. But the Zodiac, we've had that in very severe sea states in the past, and we've always weathered through. So we thought that maybe we could get him in on the Zodiac. Right. Normally I wouldn't go in. Normally one of the deckhands would bring someone into shore because I was the chief engineer. I usually stayed with the ship until we docked, and tied up. But this night, because I knew the harbor better than the deckhands did,
right.
The captain felt that maybe it would be prudent if I went along. So we went down to the bosun's locker, dusted off the old life vest, because we normally didn't wear life vests. I mean, most of us on the ship were either divers divers and deckhands and sub-operators and stuff. And we spent a lot of our lives on the water. So it just wasn't normal for us to be wearing life vests all the time. But it was pretty rough this night. We thought that would be a prudent thing. And we boarded the Zodiac and we started heading in. The seas were pretty bad. They were about 25-foot swells, actually. And when you're in the trough of a 25-foot swell, you can't see anything. You can't even see the lights of the shore.
Right.
So we would try to quick scoot down through the swell and up to the rise of another swell and kind of ride that a little bit and try to keep our bearing on the shore. Well, actually, we're trying to find the harbor buoys. And the harbor buoys, we didn't know it at the time, but the sea state closer into the shore was much worse than where we were.
Right.
And so they were bouncing up and down 25 feet as well. So it wasn't long before we lost track of the buoys and where the harbor was, and we were just heading in toward shore. Then, about 2 miles out from shore, we encountered a sandbar. And the sandbar, of course, created a surf zone. And we slid off one of those 25-footers within seconds. And we shouted, to the deckhand who was handling. I was up in the bow navigating, and he was at the console steering. I shouted to him to turn it about and let's go back out to sea, where we're a lot safer out to sea than we were in the surf zone. And just about that time, 25 feet above our head, you could see a ridge of foam. And it was another wave, and it came crashing down on top of us, and it folded that Zodiac in half like a peanut butter sandwich.
Wow.
And I was in the bow, and it catapulted me right into the water. And the wave action was just tremendous. I mean, I can honestly say I've never felt anything so ferocious in my life.
Thank you for tuning into Blog Talk Radio. You have been online with Andrea. Listen to me live or listen to an archive. Whatever you do, continue to stay connected to Online with Andrea on Blog Talk Radio.